Hi, everybody. So this is the first in a series of Facebook Live talks I'm going to be giving related to the Sovereign Sexuality membership program that I've just launched. So let's see. I'll tell you first just a little bit about the membership, and then I want to get into talking more about and sharing more about the fundamental perspectives and sensibilities of the membership, i.e. how we're holding sovereign sexuality and what is going to be informing the topics we choose, the way that we're going to go about the membership, and just the way that it's unfolding and why it even exists, actually why I felt so passionately about it. So the membership is a 3-tiered membership, and it's what else? There's so much to say about it. It's a 3-tiered membership. It's based on live webinars every other week with video check-ins in between that. We're going to be moving through different topics related to sovereign sexuality, but this is not just a conversational experience. I do a lot of videos. I do a lot of courses. I've written a book. There's a way that I value very much what it is to share and transmit and articulate things. I know there's power in that. What the membership answers for me is a longer-term holding, a longer-term container in which the actual transformation into holding a sovereign sexuality, preserving and sustaining personal power as a woman, all of these things can actually be cultivated over time with the level of support and rhythmic nourishment that it takes. I've been in this field now for a while, and what I see over and over again is that when working with the deep feminine sexual current, the deep feminine current at all, there are these revolutionary moments, these insights, these kind of huge realizations or breakthroughs, and those are revolutionary, but there is a more evolutionary journey, which means what we're walking every day, what we wake up into, what we face ongoingly in our own beings, in our relationships, constantly changing terrain, and we are continually deepening. So what that needs is ongoing, engaged accountability and support. So that's why I created the membership, why that has been, I spent quite a bit of time praying and looking into what is it that's going to follow up the book, that is going to be the next step for the courses and all of these things. And this has felt really right to me. You know, it's not a master class. It's not this retreat. It's an actual long-term supportive program. So I would love to have you, and welcome who's ever's here. You can feel free to ask me any questions. Obviously, you know, all of the information about the membership is on my website, and I'm sure that's where you would have more specific questions. In the meantime, what I would like to do, I'm giving myself 20 minutes here, what I would like to do is speak a little bit to sovereign sexuality, how I hold it, how myself and Jasmine and Dionysia, the other 2 women who are facilitating the membership, hold it, and basically how it's held in the whole context of my deep feminine tradition, where I come from and what I serve and what I support. So sovereign sexuality has a few things that, you know, it can be anything, right? Because we know that when we are expressing from our true nature, it can look like anything, any given moment. We're changing all the time. But I feel like there are some core truths, some core integrities to what makes our experience of sexuality, our experience of our true nature, an authentic one, right? How we know that we're touching that. So I'm just going to go through a few of those things, and these are very much what we'll be developing in the topics in the membership in different ways, usually in more kind of specific ways, and moving into the practicals and discussion around it. Hi, Karen. Nice to see you. So sovereign sexuality is for you, first and foremost. To me, that is one of the most core aspects of it. In a sovereign sexuality perspective, at least from this perspective, we know that female sexuality has been commodified, vilified, compartmentalized, just all the things, right? What we are reclaiming is that it is a force, a power that is for us first and foremost. From there, we share it. From there, we express it as it's true to us. But there is a way, when moving towards a sovereign sexuality, there is a reckoning with the extent to which things have been commodified, the extent to which we've been orphaned, abandoned, or cut off from what we are actually made of, what our capacities actually are, and what the expression of our potency actually is, how vast, how nuanced that can be. So it's for you, first and foremost, a sovereign sexuality. Second thing I would say is that it's untamed. And I love this piece about it, because for it to be untamed does not mean that it's reckless. A sovereign sexuality is an untamed expression of womankind. But anything that's wild, anything that's untamed, isn't reckless. It's extremely aware. It can be as quiet as it can be ferocious, right? It's wild and untamed. So there's this, this portrait of the recklessly wild, flamboyantly sexual, whatever, this portrait that has become, in some places, in some ways, a normalized expression of what it is to be a free sexual woman. It's often very exposed, it's often very reckless, and it's literally one expression of about 2 billion expressions of female sexuality. So when I work with sovereign sexuality, it's to move towards a more and more untamed state, understanding that what it is to be untamed is to be truly wild, and what it is to be truly wild is to be both elegant and untamed, to be discerning and aware and raw and alive, right? So, untamed. Sovereign sexuality is not explicitly sexual. It's actually out of all the boxes. Oh, Karen liked that. She likes the difference between untamed and reckless. So do I, quite a bit. As I'm moving into the membership, I am aware that female sexuality in general, has been put into a very tiny box. It's been put into this kind of explicitly sexual, often porn-driven. It's such a disservice, right? The female sexual current informs everything that we do as women. It informs our creativity. It informs our discernment very much. Yes, it informs our explicitly erotic, expression, but it informs the eros of our lives. And that is so far beyond what is kind of in the explicitly sexual box. So for me, with working with sovereign sexuality, there's a willingness to do what it takes to free our sense of ourselves, our understandings of our sexual capacity, our creative and generative capacity, to free that, to be the full spectrum that it is, and to inform our lives in all the ways that it does, right? And again, that can be everything from quiet and creative to dormant to passionate, right? It is, when we're moving with sovereign sexuality, we are getting close to the pulse of something that is alive inside of us, that cannot be named and can't be captured, and that we have to be willing to develop a personal, ongoing connection to, right? As if we're sitting at the feet of a mystery, which we are, and to live from that place. So we get to free ourselves from all of the portraits. That was another thing about sovereign sexuality, is it's not what you think. That was the name of this talk, actually. Sovereign sexuality is not what you think, because it's never what you think it is. Because a sovereign sexuality, a deep feminine sourced sexuality, is a living pulse. It's it's not what you think. It's beyond all that you could possibly imagine. It's in the body, it's in the felt sense, and it is infused with deep knowing, wisdom, discernment, right? That comes from inside of us, from a place of deeper wisdom, right? This is true knowing. This is direct knowing. And it comes in this way from the female body, from deeper inside of us and from beyond our mind. It can inform our minds, it can inform how we think and how we choose. But we are understanding in sovereign sexuality that when we're thinking about something, we're conceptualizing about it, we're officially not actually on the pulse of it anymore. We're talking about the pulse of it, maybe. We're starting to gesture toward it, probably, hopefully. But what it is to actually get on the pulse of your own sexuality, live there, move from it, untame it, right, is something completely different, and it needs to be supported by deep feminine practice. There is a legacy of practice, of sensibility, of tradition, of lineage that comes from the female body. It has been, I guess you could say, left out of most spiritual traditions, most orthodox ones, many yogic ones, most cultures in certain ways, especially now our overculture. And so there are gaps. There's an important gap for many of us. And it has to do with, in all these traditions and all these ways that we hold our lives, where is woman? What it is to be incarnate in these bodies with these subtle sensitivities? Can we bring that forward into all of our lives? And can we move into our sexuality with a full embrace and a full embodiment, residency inside of ourselves, our bodies, as a women, trusting that, knowing how to hold that, knowing how to tend to our energetics, to our spiritual needs, to our hearts, to our physical pleasure and our capacity to open. Right? There is quite a quite a body of practice and understanding that hasn't actually gone anywhere, despite all of the things, despite the overculture's dismissal of female sexuality and its true potential and our true capacities. It hasn't gone anywhere. And that's what my school holds. That's very specifically what this membership is going to hold and work from. We're not trying to talk about it. We are not trying to understand it from the perspective of the overculture, or even from any part of the overculture. It doesn't have it to give. The only place it's going to come from is inside of us. So when we join together, which is what the membership is supporting, is we are going to draw it from inside. From the inside of ourselves. And the membership, this is created in order to validate this journey. I think it's important to understand and to really recognize that when you feel this emergence, when you are aware that there is a inconsistency between what you know you're capable of, what you know sexuality really is, what you know life really is, and what intimacy really is, when you can feel the inconsistency between that deep knowing of what is possible and what your capacity is and what you are experiencing, what you're being presented by the world, when you can feel that inconsistency, you are in an emergence. And that emergence is powerful and it's vulnerable. We're not fighting a wave necessarily, but a lot of this movement is counter to the general movement of the mainstream, of the overculture, of the pace of things. And it's validation. It is community and connection with other women with a deep feminine wisdom stream that fortifies that journey. It's really easy to have a moment of remembrance and then to slip into amnesia again, to encounter all the things inside of ourselves or in relationship, all the things that we face, and to feel overwhelmed or very confused and unsure in the face of them, because we don't have the, without the fortification, it's just it can be a lonely, isolated, and sometimes actually kind of devastating journey. It's my experience. So that's why I'm creating the membership. Back to sovereign sexuality. I've got 4 more minutes. So it's off the pendulum. I like to talk now a lot, or just name this pendulum that's rolling here, where we're moving between this very moralized, repressed, kind of compartmentalized and shut down experience or architecture around female sexuality, all the way to the other side, where there's this, there's the pendulum swinging, where all of a sudden it gets cheapened and a little reckless and a little excessively sex positive and trying to be so highly orgasmic and free, and that is just the pendulum swinging. That none of that even touches what we're capable of. It doesn't begin to rest into what it really looks like, what it feels like, and what it is to be a woman incarnate and to be fully inhabiting our sexual force, right? Fully inhabiting as a force of nature, inhabiting it, tending to it, expressing it, making good choices around it, healing, all of it. So the final thing I would say about sovereign sexuality is that it never ends. And so, there's a way that, the way I hold my work, the way I hold my role in general, even especially actually as I'm going into this membership, is that this is sovereign sexuality. We can gesture toward it. We can focus in on it. We can share awareness around it. But ultimately, it's an emergence that's going to happen from inside of you. So the best thing I or anyone can do is support you in returning again and again to what's true for you, to find out how we can, as focalizers of this membership, how can we continue to elicit what's true from the inside of you, support that movement, right? Because this doesn't ever end. Female sexuality has the capacity to open forever, open into pleasure, open into wisdom, to knowing. It is a multidimensional experience, and that is not flaky. That's actually the truth. It's emotional, spiritual, physical. It's everything, right? And what that means is that our journeys as sovereignly sexual female creatures never end. Not after menopause, not whether we're in a relationship or not, right? Not when we think we've arrived. It is a consistent, ever unfolding journey. And so the membership is structured partly, well, very much actually with that in mind, with this awareness that companionship on this journey ongoingly is what allows for there to be a full flowering of it. Right? And the full consideration of what's arising now? What are you facing now? What just came up? What ecstasy did you just touch? What trauma did you just touch? How can you hold that? What sacred need is inside of it? What guidance is inside of this moment for you that's going to bring you into greater personal power? That's going to make you an ever greater instrument of love here on this planet, through your body, with your sexuality and your fullness as a woman, the flowering of that, right? So that's sovereign sexuality, or some aspects of it. If you have any comments or questions, I welcome you to share them. I'm at my 20-minute limit, but I'm here. I'm here especially if you have any questions about the membership. It starts on March 3rd. It just opened for registration. You can find it on my website, jumanasophia.com. And You know, I'll be giving a few more talks actually that'll move more into different aspects of the membership. But on the website, you can see, you know, you can meet me, you can know a little bit more about the other facilitators, the other coaches. You can see what some of the topics are, understand more of how it's structured. There are 3 tiers to the membership to meet women where they are in terms of both budget and also desire for, you know, at the basic level, we're going to be working with these webinars that happen every other week and email check-ins. When you move up to the mid-level tier of the membership, I'm going to be including, I'm going to be creating guided practices exclusively for the membership. And that comes with the second level, as well as quite a few other things. And then at the highest level of the membership, the 30-minute focused support session with a personal coach is included. So it's created to basically meet you wherever you are in terms of how much support you need and want. Yeah, is that about it? Stoked about it. There has been a lot of prayer, a lot of hard work, and a lot of real structuring going on to create this, because I want it to be really real and substantial for women. And I know that it takes time. It really takes time to carve out new sensibilities in our being and to soften into what it is to be a holy and very right, very untamed female sexual creature in our world right now. And we are needed. This force that's inside of us, this force that's so much more than explicitly sexual, so much more than sassy, so much more than sexy, it is so needed on our planet right now, because it has a kind of power and wisdom inside of it that's life-giving, that's life-sustaining, and that brings harmony to relations. All the things we need, right? And that our planet needs, that our people need, and that we need in order to thrive. I think it's definitely beyond time for us all to kind of step beyond the level of suffering or just unmet longing or confusion that characterizes far too many of our intimacies. So, thanks for joining me, those of you who joined. I hope this was insightful, resonant. I would love to have you join me for the membership. I'll make sure the link is in the comments. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me through the website or at support@hermysteryschool.com. All right, blessed be.